Hey, Derek.
What is it?
You know what's going to happen now, right?
People are going to talk in the comments section about how your microphone's not correctly oriented.
No, the best part about this is it filters your voice, and it's a pop filter against you, so you're no longer poppy.
Oh, apparently we don't need that anyway.
You know what we do need?
Some introductory comments. Hello and welcome.
No, before you do that, you have to clap.
Oh, shit.
You're getting so good at that. I can now adjust my microphone. I don't need a pop filter because Derek has clapped. Welcome to episode 55 of the Carmudgeon Show.
Hello and welcome. Oh, you just did that part.
Yeah, and the next part is part
of the Haggerty. What do you call it? You call it the
Haggerty Broadcast Network.
But it's actually the Haggerty Podcast Network.
They're both two syllables.
Uh-huh.
They both basically mean the same thing. A podcast is a broadcast, and a broadcast is a podcast. In fact, the second half of both of the words is identical.
They are both types of cast.
Sponsored by the Helena Rubinstein Foundation. I mean, isn't that... Or no, that was brought to you by the Helena Rubinstein. Who is Helena Rubinstein and what did she do?
I don't know. Should we Google it?
She probably gave a lot of money to PBS or something. Anyway.
It's a cause, public education.
She's probably a nicer person than either one of us.
Also true. Although she didn't educate the public well enough about getting driving licenses. I think nobody should be allowed to get a driving license. I am enraged. Because I drove here today. And this happens every time I drive anywhere.
Ever.
Yes.
Especially anywhere. Yeah.
Yes. Especially any place ever.
Unless there are no other people on the road.
Yes, which would happen if nobody was allowed to get a driving license.
What makes you so special?
We should go do a proficiency check for motoring certification and then make an establishment from there. Okay. Do we have a topic or a sponsor?
Yeah. I don't know. No one tells me this stuff. Am I buzzing? I feel like I have
Somebody's
a buzz again.
buzzing.
Yeah. There's this weird buzzing laptop issue. Whatever. I'll move the laptop at some point. Is it better? That's better.
Yes,
look, I don't care.
Much better.
It's not that I don't care. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for watching this show and listening to us on all the podcast providers, including Apple and Spotify and your other whatever.
Haggerty Podcast Network.
Yes. Is that actually a thing? I mean, Haggerty Insurance is definitely a thing. I know because they've cut me a check. And then I cut them a check. And then they cut me. It's like, it's basically a bank account where I put in money and then I have claims and I take it out.
I mean, if the actuarial science is correct, then you should be giving them more money than they're giving you.
No. Once you take my salary.
Collectively, the entire population of Haggerty customers. Otherwise, that's how insurance works.
Yeah, but if in my case, I think I actually broke even-ish until you factor in my salary, in which case I'm winning.
In one particular case. So you're a deadbeat customer.
Yeah, $7 an hour. Mm-hmm. We do have a topic because the craziest SHIT happened to me. I'm allowed to curse. Fucking craziest shit happened to me this weekend.
Tell me.
So I was in the back room of a nightclub. No.
You should get that checked.
Jesus. Yeah.
Not by Jesus.
Wasn't? Oh, it's not Easter. It's some sort. You're not supposed to make religious.
No, I should. You said you should get that checked, but not by Jesus. What happened this weekend?
So on Saturday night, I went to bed at a reasonable time, like 11 o'clock. And as I'm turning the lights off, I remember that Sunday morning I was going to a Cars and Coffee, and my buddy Alden resurrected his Corrado after like 10 years of slumber and things breaking and whatnot. And I'm about to hit 25 years with my car. He's about to hit 26 with his Corrado, and he's younger than me. He's had this car since he was like 4 or something. And so we were both going to this Cars and Coffee, and I thought, we should have our Corrado Scirocco twins there. And as I'm going to bed, I'm remembering that the Scirocco is at the warehouse, and I don't have it with me. And I'm like, I'll just get it in the morning. And then you start to, your mind goes, I'm like, does it have gas in it? Is it clean? Shit, that means I'm going to have to get up at like 6:30 and go to the warehouse and get the car and clean it and whatever. Fuck it. Get out of bed. And I drove over to the warehouse to pick up the Scirocco. And this is a very special episode here because if you're watching this, we have live images projected onto a television that I can change.
Hypothetically.
In theory, yeah. So, oh my God, it worked. Okay, at least it worked once. So for those of you listening on the Haggerty Podcast Network on a podcast provider as opposed to the tubes of Ubes, yeah. well, we're looking at a picture taken very legally. I don't have COVID. I tested twice negative this morning. I'm sorry. Hold on. I tested negative twice this morning, but I do have a stroke. Sorry. It's early. I need more caffeine.
This episode is like your Mercedes diesel, which wouldn't start.
Yeah, started but didn't run. He's awake, but he's kind of dumb. So anyway, 11 o'clock at night-ish, I'm driving on the highway, and I see this light signature, like 50 cars in front of me, and I have no idea. I've never seen those rear lights before. So I do felonious speeds, catch up to it, only to see it's a fucking Volkswagen XL1, which looks ridiculous in this picture. It doesn't even come close to demonstrating, I hit the mic, how ridiculous it looked on the road. So I take this picture and I'm like, oh my God, what in tarnation is an XL1 doing in the Bay Area?
Or in the United States, anywhere.
Yep. So I take the picture, post it. Or I take the picture next morning, post it on my way to Cars and Coffee. And later on, I come back to a million tags on Instagram where people had tagged this guy named Jim McGill. And apparently he was driving this car cross country to do an Alzheimer's benefit. And I'm like, this is amazing.
How does one legally do that?
The car lives at the Lane Museum in Nashville, Tennessee.
That place. Mm-hmm. So, their Instagram is fucking wild. You're just like, I've never heard of any of this stuff, and it's all outrageous.
It is pretty cool. I mean, this is the one museum that I keep wanting to go to, and for whatever reason, just timing never works out. But
it's in Tennessee, which is not convenient. It's not for me.
I literally drove through there, and I was supposed to go because
I don't know what your excuse is.
I mean, it's just timing.
I've never been to Tennessee. I don't go south of the Mason-Dixon line if I can avoid it.
You'll get shot.
I'll get lynched.
Yeah, I'll get shot. You'll get lynched. So anyway, so I just thought this was like amazing. Like, wow, that's crazy. People recognized him. Then I get tagged in a post that just says something along the lines of like, this random guy at Jason Cammisa captured a very stressful moment where I was driving the XL1 following an ambulance because my husband had just been taken to the emergency room. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Turns out the driver of the car had a medical emergency, went to the ER, and this was his husband driving the car back from the hospital to their friend's house where they were staying for the night. So I immediately messaged back. I'm like, hey, I hope you guys are okay. If you need anything, let me know. Check my Instagram DM requests, and there is a message from Jim saying like, hey, hope you don't mind that we reposted your photo, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'll send you the original because it's highly retouched, whatever, but how can I help? He's like, no, it's all fine. We're just doing this thing for research, and I'm in the hospital. I'm in Marin General. And I'm like, I live 5 minutes away from there. What do you need? Nothing. No, we're good. Like, do you need somewhere to stay? He's like, no, I'm not leaving the hospital, but we're all good. Why don't you come by tomorrow morning and look at the car? It'll be in the hospital parking lot. Like, okay, that's sweet. Like, it's an XL1. I've never seen one in person. Get up the next morning to a message from him, wake up to a message from him. He's like, so apparently you're a thing. And by the way, I should say that the Lane Museum and Haggerty do, I believe, a lot of work together. I know that one of my coworkers rolled a Tatra that belongs to the Lane Museum.
Wow, that's a fun phrase that no one has ever said before.
My coworker rolled a Tatra?
Yeah.
In fact, it was said a lot in the Nazi Party because you know that these Tatras were so unstable that the Nazi Party forbade any officers from driving Tatras because they were all dying in them. Huh. So my coworker, Sam Smith, whose heart is larger than his brain, decided to find out just what made them so evil handling.
And he did.
Yeah, and he did. I say that as a joke to Sam, but he did roll a fucking museum Tatra. And somehow, thank God, didn't get hurt.
A T87 or a Tatra plan or a 603?
We'll have an insert of this. It wound up all over the internet. How do you not know this? You know everything.
And I like Tatras too.
Oh, yeah. So apparently...
I've never rolled one though.
Do not
because I've never driven one.
Well, yeah. Well, you don't have to drive one to roll one. You can just push it over like cow tipping. But apparently they are very easy to roll because they're swing axles, and you can see in the photo right before it happened, like the wheel tucked under. They had released some pressure out of the rear tire, so the tire tucked under, the wheel tucked under, and just boom right over. And it was a low speed thing. Thank God Sam didn't get hurt because you don't want to roll a 1930s car, 40s, 30s, whatever.
Well, that's why I asked what model it was. Probably, God, that's sad.
Yeah, it's okay. It's being fixed. Haggerty insured. Like you can't work for an insurance company and roll one of your clients' cars. museum cars and then say, well, I guess it's totaled. Do you want a Chevy Bolt instead? No. So I'm sure it's in process of being fixed. Anyway, so he's like, so apparently you're a thing. Why don't you come and take the car for the day? And I'm like, take an XL1 for the day on Memorial Day on a holiday? I couldn't. So I did. And I spent the day yesterday driving Ferdinand Piëch's crowning achievement.
Is this the Piëch episode?
This is not the Piëch episode. How do you pronounce Piëch episode? Is it Piëch episode?
Yeah, that.
I mean, I think it's so fun that we keep promising to do an episode on Ferdinand Piëch, and it's been years now. It's got to be 2 years. And
literally.
I think we're just going to be like a tease who never puts out.
That's why people keep watching. They're just waiting. As soon as if we ever were to do the episode, then nobody would watch the show.
They wouldn't watch it again. It's like your mom said. If you put out, you don't get a second date.
Oh, that's the problem.
Didn't your mom tell you that?
She did not.
Or she was like, just put out and do it, get it over with.
Yeah, you got to do the quality assessment early on.
Yeah. We're not going to go down this road. So anyway, this is the anti-Veyron. I mean,
okay. What does it have in common with the Veyron?
That it's
mid-engined.
Mid-engined.
And no, the doors are not the same.
Dual clutch automatic.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This has billionaire doors, but the Veyron doesn't.
Yeah, so it outranks the Veyron in terms of doors.
Mm-hmm.
It is carbon construction. It has that in common with it. It's rear-wheel drive, which is half of in common with the Veyron.
So not.
Mm-hmm. It has
is it turbocharged?
No, it's a naturally aspirated 820 something cc. It's an 800 something cc twin
diesel.
Naturally aspirated diesel. It makes
that's like the engine that you would put in like a pumping station in the 1920s.
Yeah,
no,
because
not
diesel.
20s.
That's the weirdest thing. It makes the coolest noises. Like from the outside, it doesn't particularly sound good. It sounds like an air pump. Inside, you get two-cylinder like lawnmower noises, but as a diesel. Never heard that before. It's kind of like it sounds exactly like, this is going to sound like an insult, but I mean as a compliment. It sounds exactly like a broken rocker on a single overhead cam like M20.
It's a parallel twin? Like inline twin or flat two? I don't know. Or a V twin?
You can't really see it, and I didn't know all that. I mean, this was kind of like a surprise. I was at College and Coffee, and it happened. So I don't know. It's a two-cylinder of 800 and something cc's, and it makes like 47 kilowatts. So I think all in with and a hybrid, obviously. So it's a plug-in hybrid.
Oh, really?
Well, okay. Let's back up for a second. The point of this car. So Piëch's thing was, let's be the best at everything.
There was like a fuel economy target that was insane, right? And that's what
the car is called XL1, and that was the target.
1
per gallon per.
No, it's not 1 miles per gallon. It's not 1 liter per 100K.
Oh,
really?
Or was it? Yeah, it was
1 liter per 100K.
This was originally called the Volkswagen 1 liter car.
And that's not displacement.
No, it doesn't even have 1 liter of displacement. The idea was, I guess that Mucinex didn't work. The goal was 1 liter per 100 kilometers, which is something on the order of 250 miles per gallon.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
So what was your fuel economy for your trip?
We're not going to talk about what I did yet. But apparently, this got a rating of 0.9 liters per 100. It was 280 miles per gallon.
Holy hell.
Yeah. And the deal is it's a plug-in hybrid. So it's got, I think, a 5.5 kilowatt hour battery.
Just a little guy.
That's pretty big for a plug-in hybrid.
How much does it weigh?
1750.
And
weight is not really all that relevant, but coefficient of drag of 0.19.
Okay.
On a shape with no frontal area. And there will be other pictures of this thing where you can see how it is tiny. I mean, on that, let me see if I can get back to that previous picture. You see, it doesn't really look, it's really low and really narrow.
There's a lot of lane on the right side of the car.
There's a lot of, hold on, there will be. Oh, look, this was my holiday, lying on the ground with my bald spot showing. Let's see what other pictures I put in here. Oh, it has no mirrors.
That's very illegal.
It has no mirrors. It's the coolest thing. The image that comes out of those screens is the best high def, like HDR'd image I've ever seen in my life.
How old is this thing?
I think this one is 2014. I mean, they're 10 years old at this point. And that camera's HDR is unbelievable. The image is unreal. The hardest part is trying to figure out where that car actually is, because we're used to looking in a mirror and we know what like size things are and where they are. So the first couple 40 lane changes I made were very like, I hope there's no one there, you know, especially when I was in traffic.
How's the rear quarter visibility?
There is none. There's no visibility behind you. There's no rearview mirror. There's no backup camera, which is kind of fucked up. Like they put side cameras in, but no backup camera.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Did they sell these to the public?
They did. They made 200 of them.
Really?
Look at the teardrop shape. The rear wheels, the rear track
like
is
a Citroen SM.
Yeah, but way more aggressive. Like it doesn't really show all that well in the picture. The front track it's got to be 1.5 feet wider than the back track. That's
outrageous.
It's outrageous. Hold on, that picture, stupid picture again. I'm washing it. There's the camera again.
It's sort of handsome. Whoa.
So it's a 2-seater.
They staggered the humans
they have
so
to,
that they can overlap the shoulders.
Yeah, not really wide enough for 2 people.
Yeah,
that's
like
how narrow it is.
McLaren F1 trick. The upholstery looks nice.
The interior is stunning.
Yeah,
it's all of these different
Why
like.
did they only make 200 of these?
Well, because I don't think they would have been able to sell that much more. Okay, there you can see how tiny it is. There it is.
It looks like a shoe.
What I love this is future, past, future. I mean, the whole idea was how do you get the most, efficient powertrain in the world? And well, kind of Tesla figured that out and beat Volkswagen. So, all right, that will show some more of it. But there you can see just how tiny it is. I mean, it's an itty bitty little thing.
Yeah.
It's huge once you're in. Like, got a tremendous amount of room because even with a passenger
overlapped.
Yeah, I can easily reach the door on the right side, but there's no passenger there. They're sort of behind there.
It's like 2/3 of a McLaren F1.
It's exactly what it was with 1/1000th of the engine, but it did do.
Oh, that's healthy.
Yeah.
That's more than 100 miles an hour.
It's 103 miles an hour.
What track did you go to?
It's limited. I was on Sonoma's quarter-mile track. It did that in a quarter mile.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a quarter mile.
It's fast.
You did the
74
quarter mile.
horsepower. Damn.
Quarter mile.
Fucker did that in 1/8 mile, and I had plenty of time to slow down. Shut up. Stop asking questions. But 103 miles an hour. Is what it's limited apparently to 99, but it showed 166 and it was not really going to go that much more quickly than that, but it did it. Over the course of the 100 miles or so that I put on it, it averaged 3 liters per 100 kilometers. So about 75 miles per gallon.
That's impressive considering you did a lot of quarter mile runs, presumably.
A couple of them. But yeah, this is such a Piëch thing to do. I mean, the McLaren F1, the whole, Jesus Christ. I'm looking at the seats and thinking about McLaren. What the fuck was in that Mucinex? That's what's going on. I think I took
just an unlabeled pill, and you were like, "This is probably Mucinex."
I'll take this. That's what's going on. I'm dumb from the Mucinex.
Is that a side effect?
Go to sleep over here. The whole point of the Veyron was that Ferdinand Piëch wanted to flex the muscles of the Volkswagen Group. I mean, this man, we will do an episode on him one day, maybe. He invented Quattro. He invented the 5-cylinder engine. I mean, he's just behind just accomplishment after accomplishment after accomplishment in the auto industry. And the Veyron was, I want a car that does 400 kilometers an hour. Suck it.
In flip-flops. Yeah. I mean, like, as opposed to, well, you've related this story before about how it needed to go faster than, 253 miles an hour, because that was what the Peugeot did at Le Mans in 1989. But it unseated the 917. Yeah. And the point was that in order to go that fast, that he had done it in a race car, and that in the Veyron you could do that, you could roll out of bed and do it in flip-flops if you wanted to, just to highlight how far technology had progressed in the ensuing, I don't know, what is that, 15 years?
Well, and if you're gonna beat somebody else's record, and you can do it by, this purpose-built race car did 402 or whatever it was at 401, and he needs to do 402, you can say, all right, I'm going to beat it, or I'm going to beat it in the most comfortable, well-built, beautiful, amazing thing. And that was Piëch. That was just what he did. And this, I believe the original XL1 was tandem seating. It was even narrower. And if I remember, I have not had a chance to do any research, which I apologize to the audience because normally I would do, but no time. This was a surprise.
Yesterday's surprise.
a yesterday surprise. I mean, this just happened. I haven't even gone through the photos yet. These are just random iPhone pics. But the whole idea was it was tandem and it was a diesel, and then I think they went to a wider sort of semi-tandem thing with the hybrid, with a plug-in hybrid, and then hit the target. But in typical Piëch style, like you get in this thing and you're like, okay, this is not a concept. Like this whole car was
like
a science
productionized car.
Yeah. Like the whole thing was basically a science experiment, and any other company and any other person other than Ferdinand Piëch would have said, all right, well, we made it. We did it. Fuck you. Goodbye. Now he was like, no, we're going to put it in production and it's going to be spectacular. And it is. Look at those seats. There's a lot of off the shelf stuff. Like the tachometer looks very Beetle, like new Beetle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of this HVAC and shifter. And
that's like Polo and Golf and stuff. Like it's all kind of familiar stuff. But the center console's carbon fiber, exposed.
And the dash.
The materials are this sort of textured, rubberized stuff. It's a beautiful, beautiful, well-crafted interior. You can tell it's like handmade. There's stitching everywhere. It's just absolutely.
They could only sell 200 of these?
They only did sell 200. I don't know what the demand was like.
I wonder what they tooled to produce. Like if there had been massive demand, how many they could have made.
I kind of wonder. Look, it has limited appeal. It's got no back window. It's got quite a bigger trunk than my Lotus probably. I couldn't figure out how to get
the huge
front
achievement.
Open. It's a tiny car. It's 140 something inches long. I think it's really little, and it gets 280 miles per gallon, or some 75 when I drive it.
Seems like a good way to drive across the country these days.
I give these guys a lot of credit. No wonder he wound up in the hospital. I mean, seriously. So the bad on the car is the air conditioning on full blast. It does have AC. It's got Subaru SVX style windows. So like windows within windows. Yeah. That when they're open.
McLaren F1 style windows.
Sorry. McLaren F1 seating position and windows. At 60 miles an hour, you can't have them open. Like the buffeting is...
Oh, the helicopter effect.
It's a helicopter with like 3 turbos on it, because instead of the normal like 3 hertz buffeting, it's like a 10 hertz buffeting. Never heard that before, but it's like your brains will explode. So the windows will be closed. The air conditioning on full blast on a 77 degree day was barely enough to keep it comfortable. Like every time we open the door, we're like, oh, it's cooler outside. And the mirrors do take some getting used to, for sure. But the doors, like...
Cameras.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The camera mirrors. The camera replacement for the mirrors. Other than that, I mean, everything else is really good. Really genuine. Oh, road noise. Huge amounts of road noise.
Why is that?
Probably no sound deadening. You have a carbon. So carbon is a plastic, carbon fiber reinforced plastic. And they resonate. So it's basically a box that just amplifies. It's like a kazoo. You're on the inside of a kazoo. Carbon chassis cars tend to be loud. And this is the loudest one I've ever been. I mean, the engine's not loud, but just road roar. No wind noise. Even at 166 kilometers an hour, none.
Well, how would you have known given the road noise?
Yeah. But I mean, you definitely notice the absence of any wind noise. Like there's just nothing. No engine. I mean, the engine is super relaxed. It barely usually goes over 3,000 RPM. It really sounds like a broken rocker. That's all you hear. No turbo noises because
no turbo.
So the idea is you would be able to charge it on a wall charger it's 5.5 kilowatt hours, and which would give you 30 miles of range or something like that. And then, it can switch into hybrid mode. The charger apparently...
Does it drive the wheels conventionally, or is it like a planetary Toyota system for
It's a
hybridage?
7-speed dual clutch with probably just a motor on the output shaft. I don't know.
So it's not like a Prius in the sense that the motor is like being a generator.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the motor can definitely generate stuff. Like if you let it sitting idle, you can watch the battery percentage go up. But it's it's a 7-speed, not an eCVT. And so most of the time that I was driving at low speeds, engine's off and you're using battery power, but then hit the gas and it wakes up, or hit the diesel pedal and it wakes up.
What about tires? Special tires?
115s on the front. And the crazy thing is the thing actually turns.
Narrower than motorcycle tires.
They look... I wish I had that picture of it. I think they're 115. They're either 105 or 115s. They are, I mean, easily you can wrap your hands around the tread and then down the sidewalls into the rims. They're tiny. Let's see if there's a better picture of that in here. I kind of doubt it. You can barely see it there.
They look like space sabers.
Yeah, that's exactly what they look like. And the rears are apparently 145s, but they're so inset you can't see them.
It's rear wheel drive.
It's rear wheel drive. The thing was, I mean, filthy, but that kind of sounds like an insult. It had just driven cross country. So the first thing I did when I brought it home, I washed it, I vacuumed the whole interior, cleaned the whole car up. I'm like, I'm not going to take pictures of a dirty car and say everyone needs to donate to charity, which is coming, by the way, because you're all going to be donating to the charity. This guy wound up in the hospital on an Alzheimer's run. That's cool. I mean, it's not cool for him, but it's like we need to reward this sort of behavior of people doing cross-country drives after importing something like that for a museum. So, think about the heroics here. He lives in Ireland.
You left that bit out.
Yeah, he lives in Ireland. He and his partner live in Ireland. And I don't know what the deal is between them and Lane. But anyway, this car lives at the Lane and just does a bunch of publicity stuff. And he's like, well, fine, I'll drive it from New York to San Francisco.
Wait, so how is it legally here?
I don't know. Show and display, probably. I mean, it's got Tennessee something plates on it. I don't ask any questions.
They didn't look very legitimate, but
it's legit.
They look legal, but not permanent. Is what
they
I
are. Like there's some sort of distributor plate or something. Whatever it was. We can see the back of it. But
what
just
a cool thing.
look. This is me getting struck by lightning. I'm parked in front of a church. Yeah. Complete.
No, but this is a church-friendly car. It gets lots of MPGs.
It does.
Right? You can't do that in a, I don't know, choose your 9 mile per gallon car.
And it has a diesel particulate filter.
Oh, good.
So it is actually a clean diesel.
Whoa.
I wanted to
VW certified.
I wanted to park it in a gate so I could say, "Here's diesel gate." Yeah,
yes.
but I just think it's this car is not about the fact that it's diesel.
No, I mean, if you're using that little fuel, then the particulate impacts are lower. I suppose.
It does have it was on empty, so it was in the red. The needle was in the red, and I pulled over to a fuel station and I filled it up, and it took 2.6 gallons.
Wow!
And then showed a range of 270 kilometers. Like that's the joke. It's so awesome.
That's pretty cool.
But a hell of a car to spend, 6,000 kilometers or 3,500 miles driving cross country. It's
well, and all of the baggage is going inside of it, and
no,
the humans.
I mean, there's a trunk space. I mean, there's a significant trunk. I do have a picture of it somewhere, but maybe that'll be an insert. Sorry, Paolo. But I mean, there is a trunk. So the joke is that the charger runs off of UK power, right? So it's this is I think at Europe, so it runs off of 240 with a European plug, and it's not waterproof. So
that's speaking of well thought out.
Yeah, the guys I'm like, only the fucking Germans. Probably the idea is you would have that installed at your house because all modern EVs and plug-in hybrids have a charger on board. This is a big box that looks like it would fill up half the trunk. So they just drove it in hybrid mode, cross country. I did not ask what MPGs they got, nor did I ask what speeds they were going. But it's really not louder at 85 than it is at 50. It's just road sort of roar. But look at that wiper. It's got one wiper.
It looks like the front of a train.
Yeah. Neat car.
It's a shame they didn't sell more of them. Can't imagine how it would have done in the US. I mean, it wouldn't have passed crash.
Probably not. It does have an airbag. I mean, this is again that you get in the car and you hit the button, it starts. It's got a display that tells you what's going on, and it's just a normal car. Like this is only Piëch would have done this, where everything functions exactly as you'd expect. It does have that Garmin. It doesn't like have a built-in radio, but it's got that Garmin display thing, which is built in, and that has a FM radio in it. There's got to be there's that Garmin thing on the dash. And so there are volume controls below the HVAC controls. There's volume and then, lock and unlock and whatever. It just functions like a normal.
This is a very like Volkswagen approach, which is we're going to take everything that currently exists and do a really good job of it, as opposed to like revolution.
Right. I mean,
it's simultaneously revolutionary and also not revolutionary.
Well, the technology to make, or everything involved in making a car that gets 250 miles per gallon is revolutionary. But they're like, but why should people have to suffer through a science experiment? Let's make a beautifully crafted interior. The suspension tuning's good. It handles well. The steering is unassisted. It's great.
Really?
Yeah. It's but like the stalks, it's so ridiculous to me that a fucking for example, if let's imagine Fiat Group had said.
Sorry. I just imagined Fiat Group and then I laughed when I imagined Fiat Group.
I love how you just like, there is not even
we don't even have to imagine Fiat Group doing anything.
And you're
you just have to
laughing. Okay, but seriously, imagine Ferrari says we're gonna break a record. It's not gonna be in a full like whatever record they would do. They would just go for the record.
Right, and it would be so sort of like slipshod and thrown together, and it would just be like, okay, it managed to do the record, and now there's nothing left of it because it turned into dust afterwards, and we should sweep the dust into a pile and put it in a museum.
Right. And then if they had to put it in production for that record to be a production car record, what would that look like?
I mean, they'd make Johnny Agnelli buy one. Well, not Johnny Agnelli because he's thoroughly dead, but, Luca di Montezemolo. They make somebody like who was not going to publicly pan the car buy one of them, and then they're like, look, it's a production car. We sold one of them.
And if they had to make 200 of them, they would actually make 40 of them and stash them in 5 different locations and cheat on that.
Yes, and make like board members buy them and promise never to turn them on.
Well, and it would have an interior like I was hoping you would go here on your own, like an F40. Like that F40 wasn't a record car, was it? It was never supposed to break any records. But if they get in that interior, look, the car's fabulous. The car's amazing.
I mean, I think that's part of the appeal of the car is that the interior is made of Velcro.
Right. It's awesome. But you see the difference between, like, okay, we're just going to cobble this into, it's a carbon fiber thing and we're just going to cobble it together and the interior just needs to function versus that, which is like a full production spec, like best interior in the world, only Piëch would do.
I mean, yeah, if you could run the numbers on this, it would make absolutely no sense to have done this. But if you run the numbers on anything that Piëch did during this era, then it doesn't make sense.
I wonder if they lost more money on this than they did in the Veyron. I mean, this sold for 100,000 euro. Oh, stop it with that reaction. It gets 280 miles per gallon according to the, testing. It's 0.9 liters per 100.
Yeah, but
120 grand. Let me tell you something, sir. You could drive around in a Lamborghini that was on fire with a stripper on top of it and wouldn't get half the attention this does. You want to be an attention whore? 100 grand. Yeah. Look at that.
Wow. 100,000 euros.
100,000 euro. Yeah.
Oh, no wonder they only sold 200 of them. Did they even sell them all?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
100 grand. 100 okay. Grand.
But I genuinely...
You're
going to say this, and I'm going to regret saying it. This is the only automatic car that I've considered buying in the last 5 years.
I mean, how much did you actually consider buying this car? / you already own an automatic, which you didn't just consider buying.
I don't have an automatic. I have a 1-speed, non-transmissible electric car. Where's that picture of the e-Golf? I love this. I just love how tiny it is compared to I mean, that's the thing. Aero drag is all about
frontal
area times coefficient of drag. That is neither.
Yes.
There isn't a shadow of an idiot in the right-hand corner. But yeah, where is it next to the e-Golf? The thing is tiny. But look, if I had 100 grand laying around I think they're worth like 100, between like 70 and 100.
You could never get it in the US though.
Oh, whatever.
How many MPG does the e-Golf get?
The last car I averaged 121 MPG equivalent. This car I'm averaging about 100. And I do drive this car harder than I drove.
That's a function of the wheels and tires.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
I mean, look, the e-Golf is a real thing, right? It's funny. I drove the e-Golf to the hospital where I picked up the XL1. And when I got back into the e-Golf, I'm like, this is a real car. Like, it's got power steering, it's got air conditioning that works, it's got suspension that, it's a miniature Rolls Royce. You know this about Mark 7s. But no one looked at me.
And that's worth, let's see, an e-Golf is worth $25,000 today. So that's worth...
Bump it up. We're on camera here.
Oh, sorry.
38.
$125,000. Oh, so they cost the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the people's reactions was kind of the best part and the worst part of the XL1.
Well, yes, it's like anything interesting when you drive around in it and people are like, you are going to drive into me because you're taking a picture instead of operating a motor vehicle.
This car did get hit, apparently, early on in its life by someone taking a picture of it who didn't see a traffic jam coming up and just swerved into it. I don't know the details. Apparently it wasn't hurt badly, but there were 7. It's so funny watching because people are either like, la, 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 or like, it's one or the other.
Really?
And how
does anyone not react to that?
Because they're like in their own little world, Northern California people. You interacted with them on the way here to the studio this morning. He got here. He was
all
quite violent.
I hope they all die. Okay. So that's... No, don't act surprised.
That sounds like something I would say.
You've said... Yeah,
I say it all the time.
You've said far worse things. Okay, so you... That's the problem with driving around in something that attracts a lot of attention, no matter what it is.
There was one chick in a Chevy Spark EV who, I think she broke her neck. I mean, I heard ambulance sirens afterwards. She was just mouth agape, like, as we drove by.
Did anyone know what it was?
No one.
No one knew what it was.
No one knew. What is that? Is that a new Volkswagen? No, it's an old Volkswagen. What? You know, and that's only if they could see the enormous VW badges all over it.
The badge is probably not that big, but the car is little, so the badge looks big.
Look at it. It looks half the size of the badge. Yeah. What a ride. This one, the steering wheel is like 5 degrees off center. And so it needs, my guess is, this is mechanic Jason speaking, it needs to have the steering wheel centered and then the ABS and ESC like recalibrated. So on left-hand bends, as soon as you turn in, you hear this ABS pump on, like, and it's like nibbling at the front wheels going, what the fuck is going on? Right-hand bends, slid around, everything, no problem. So, so I could only judge its handling on right-hand bends. No idea what the tire pressure situation is. Like, I just got in and drove it.
Does it have grip?
It's got quite a lot of grip. I mean, I got a little squeal out of, tires, but at a pace that was on a closed course. No, it's quick. It's quicker on back road. It actually
on
handles.
A back road.
I took it on the back road, of course.
And what would you compare it to on the back road in terms of competence or pace?
Oh, I don't think it's like, it's not like Miata quick, but it generated enough.
No,
not with those tires on it.
Yes.
I mean, the e-Golf pulls 1.07 G. This is probably, I don't know, 0.90.
That was world beating in.
I mean, pretty damn good for something with bicycle tires on it. And no track in the back. There's one shot that we're going to have to get an insert. Sorry. We're going to have to get an insert on that one where it's just a straight shot and you can see that the track in the rear is like half of the track of the front. It's amazing that the thing turns at all.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't that adversely affect handling?
You would think, grip? Yeah. But
is it assy?
I don't know. Never asked on me. Also, it's got non-defeatable stability control. Probably for the better when I'm driving somebody else's actual museum piece while he's in the hospital.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so by the way, this, if you guys are interested, and you should be interested because this guy's really doing God's work here. Please go check out the Also on Twitter. And this is if you can scan, you might even be able to scan your screen if we zoomed in on that or some technology with whatever, but you should be able to donate, to these guys, and every penny collected goes straight to Alzheimer's research. I haven't found out. I did not bother asking what Alzheimer's research. I think the fact that they're taking this car cross country just to raise funds for a medical condition, only to have a medical condition, tells me they get my money. Right. And they should get yours too. We should support this kind of stuff. Especially, look, you can say, I'm raising money, or you can ship a fucking XL1 to the United States and drive it from New York to San Francisco for the hell of it.
I mean,
and raise money to benefit someone else while you sit in the hospital. And when was the last time you did anything that nice, hyphen?
Never. Definitely.
Right. Why would you? You're not nice. Yeah. Such a cool car. Going doors. I would have one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even at 120?
Yeah. I mean, I still want have you ever driven a first gen Insight, Honda Insight?
No.
Okay. 3-cylinder, manual transmission. Very much the same sort of vein, but this is a perfect thing. We always say Americans invent something and then the Germans make it work and then the Japanese make it reliable. This is kind of slightly out of order, but like there was the GM EV1 and then, which was kind of a fully electric, and that definitely the Mucinex.
I can tell you're making this up as you go along.
Of course. And I'm also like dumb from the Mucinex. So meanwhile, some doctor in the comments going to be like, if Mucinex DM, there's nothing in there that makes you stupid. It's just, you're being stupid. But yeah, I mean, this is very much in the same vein as an EV1, but they sold these to the public and then hello GM didn't take them back and crush them.
There's a couple of EV1s Still extant, floating around.
Peterson has one. Peterson Museum in LA has one, right?
Apparently the phone number still works. There's a phone number on the side that it says call this for like roadside assistance. It now is, I think, for the Chevy Bolt and Volt or whatever, but the phone number the GM EV phone number still functions.
How sad is it that I, as a child, called a Chevy customer assistant so often that I still remember 1-800-222-1020, which was Chevy customer.
Did you even have a Chevy?
I did. We had a 75 Chevy Impala wagon, VIN 1L35U51173985. When I was a kid, we had a country home like outside of New York in the middle of nowhere. And that was our like shit box to run dump runs. And it had a 400 cubic inch V8 and it was green with green vinyl on the inside. And it was terrible. And that was like going to be my first car. Like I was going to take that when I turned 16 and I would call and you could call this number and I would give them the VIN and they would tell me the specs. It was an LT5 and they would, this displacement with this 185 horsepower and 305 pound-feet of torque. How is it that I remember this 35 years later? How old am I? 30 years later. That's crazy. But
5 years later. Why did you call so often if the information was always the same?
Because I always think of new things, like what's the compression ratio? They could tell you anything about these cars. They could look up by your VIN.
A person sitting there.
Doing nothing, crying, waiting for my phone call. Just so they could help me with my,
does the phone number still work?
The last I tried it, which was probably about 10 years ago, yes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you know what's going to happen now.
God, they're going to get inundated.
With idiots.
By our 3 listeners.
The only 3 listeners that care enough to make a toll-free telephone call.
You know what I did discover is that Mazda still does this, actually, because when I was used Miata shopping and you see a car and you're like, does this car have LSD or not? You call the number.
As an acid?
What?
Limited slip differential. Sorry, I'm on drugs.
You call Mazda. I mean, I'm not fazed by this. On we go. You call the number and you're like, does this VIN have LSD? Because that's like an important make or break. If you're looking at some random classified for a car that's halfway or all of the way across the country, and they'll be like, yes, it does have LSD and it also has Bilsteins or whatever.
To be certain, they will tell you whether it originally
correct.
Did. They don't know if someones ripped it out. Like
correct.
Full telematics.
This is like the situation where you rent your car out on Turo. Did you know that this happened? A guy had we know maybe had an M235 and somebody rented it on Turo and it came back with base model brakes.
Oh, that's a really good scam. That's terrible.
That's also, people do it with U-Hauls also. You rent a U-Haul and you get like a box van and you take the big motor out of it and put it in your, half-ton pickup. And you do motor swap and you're taking the U-Haul for... You've never heard of this scam?
No!
People, and then they return it with
this. I only pretend to be evil. That's a really good one. I should steal that.
So that happens with the U-Hauls because they all have the 6 liters in them or whatever the hot motor is for the Chevys. So anyway...
You are never borrowing any of my cars because I could see the joy on the
No. I mean, I think it's terrible. I genuinely do think it's terrible. If you're touring out an M235 and it comes back with 228 brakes on it, like, who the fuck does that? That's like a really dreadful human thing to do, especially...
It is a terrible thing to do. Here, I kind of have a theory that all is fair in love and rental cars. And I've done very, very unchristian things to rental cars.
One thing if it's a corporate entity that you're fucking, and another thing if it's like some dude who's put his car on Turo so that he can afford to have a car that he otherwise couldn't, or...
I mean, you've seen the Tercel jump shot. There's an insert, the Tercel 3 feet in the air. So this is a friend of mine.
Yeah, but that's owned by Hertz.
It was owned by
Avis.
Budget? One of them, whatever. Somebody whom I didn't care about. All of this was really funny until my mom opened a car rental business. And then when the first Jackass came out, we were all watching it. And it was the first one or whatever, one of the Jackass movies where they rented a car and they fucking destroyed it and returned it basically like in a box. And my sister and I were howling and my mother was just red in the face and like, that's not funny. And we're like, that's fucking amazing. And she was like, that's really not funny. Because of course that happened to her all the time. People destroy the car. And when she lived on an island, it was, a little small business. And when you buy that $500 collision damage waiver, CDW thing, basically that was $500 that she would put in a bank account as a sort of insurance policy, but there was no actual insurance. So, people would come there, pay the $500, just take these cars off-road, jump them, throw them in the ocean, do whatever the fuck they wanted with it. And then she was out of car. So it was an actual real thing. And so, of course, my sister and I are like hysterical laughing. And the more we laugh, the more she's like, this is not funny. Someone owns that car. I'm like, it's probably Hertz. Fuck them. She's like, it's probably not Hertz. It's some... Yeah, anyway. Little insight into my poor mom.
Okay, so the moral of that story is you should only
Destroy
ruin rental cars owned by corporate entities.
Or if you need a limited slip differential, you call Mazda about a car parked on the street. You jack it up and you steal the diff. Wait, no, that's
the opposite. That's the opposite of the lesson we're trying to teach.
Yeah, because you know what happens then? Karma kicks in, and the car falls on you and kills you. This happens. I get
catalytic converter thefts. Yes.
Right. Seriously, I constantly get these like police, citizen, next door, whatever the fuck updates about like catalytic converter thief squished to death by another Prius. And I was like, yes, it happens all the time.
Well, that is the administration of justice.
I mean, can you imagine like on your headstone, like you were squished by a Prius?
Well, that would be very just for those people. I think that's unforgivable. Also.
I think no, the crime is unforgivable, but I think that the punishment is perfect.
Yes.
Squished by a Prius.
Yeah, it is justice.
You know, there's a long list of things I don't want to die doing. I'm not getting hit by a Kia. Like, sorry, not going out like that. But the idea is squished by a Prius.
On that topic, be sure to check out the Wikipedia article entitled "Death During Consensual Sex."
What?
That's a real thing. It's a real Wikipedia article.
Why would you know this?
There's a great account on Instagram called Depth of Wikipedia. And she posts all this random shit from the dark corners of Wikipedia, and it's all just outrageously funny.
This is what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when you have an IQ of 240,000 and you need to find stimulus in a world full of stupid people.
There's a lot of... the account is widely followed. I'm not the only one. So don't try and marginalize my enthusiasm.
I'm trying to celebrate your intelligence and your lack of a social life.
Yes. Maybe those things are correlated. Anyway.
You used a word that would seem to
reinforce that. Okay. Anything else to cover this episode?
Other than the fact that we will never do a peak-episode.
Yes, we've covered that already. And you need an XL1.
I could have another Volkswagen.
I'm shocked to hear you say that. I'm interested in experiencing it. I bet it's really freaking cool.
It was really fucking cool. It was really, I honestly, this is my official request to the Lane Museum. Send it back out here. Let me do a Revelations on it. So there is some guy that's flying in tomorrow, and apparently I'm picking him up from the airport. I'm very nice, and I offered to pick him up from the airport and possibly put him up at my house. So if I get murdered, you know why. I don't know who this person is. But anyway, there's a guy coming in to drive it back to Nashville. And
shouldn't that guy be you?
No, God, I don't want to deal with that shit. I have too much other crap to do. But I really would love to research this car more and do an episode on it, because wow, what a thing. What a thing. I mean, I did once drive an Insight that had 280 something thousand miles on it, and it had a 74.6 mile per gallon lifetime.
Not
economy.
Bad. It's a three-cylinder with VTEC.
No, I don't think it does. I think it only revved to like $5,000. It was like a manual. Like you think, triple manual, it's going to be like a Honda Beat. No.
Yes, I know that there's like a sort of rabid enthusiast following for the manual ones, but
that's on my short list.
Really?
I mean, but if I had to choose between a first gen Insight and an EV1,
EV1 isn't that?
The XL1,
lead acid batteries or something.
The first gen, then they were updated to nickel metal hydride. Yeah, they never got like
lithium ion. It predates that technology.
But no, like a Volkswagen XL1, like a carbon 2-cylinder diesel, like.
So you're just going to tell people that you have a hybrid car with dihedral doors and a carbon chassis.
Yeah, mid-engine offset two-seater.
Yeah, people are going to be like, "Oh, you got a P1?"
Yeah. No, not quite. That's what I just did this with the Beat to somebody last week. They're like, "Oh, what'd you get?" I'm like, "Well, I bought a Honda product. It
goes to 9,000,
8,500 RPM, mid-engined, 5-speed manual transmission, Pininfarina designed 90s Honda." And they're like, "Oh my God, you bought a 3-liter NSX." I'm like, no. It's even cooler than that.
Well, that wasn't designed by Pininfarina anyway.
What? What was?
The NSX.
Yes, it was.
The NSX was designed by Pininfarina?
Of course it was.
No.
Yes.
Really?
We're going to just keep saying no, and I'll keep saying yes. Yes.
Or we could solve it with the internet.
Yeah, no, but I believe it was.
That
original one. That's why it's so beautiful.
That's not something that I came across.
So I think there's a controversy about this. I think it was
Controversy.
Controversy.
I think is what you meant to say.
Yeah, fantastic. So apparently the beat, which was designed by Pininfarina, was done by a gentleman from Eastern Europe, I believe, like Hungarian or something. He designed it on contract for Pininfarina. Pininfarina took credit for it, and then like 20 years later was like, by the way, we subbed it out. The beat.
Since you were all asking.
Since you're all asking, the NSX, the original NSX concept was a joint effort between Pininfarina and Honda. And then I think Honda bought out the rights to the design and changed it slightly. Refined it, but it's a Pininfarina design. God, I'm going to get crucified in the comments if I got that wrong.
I didn't know that.
How is it possible you know everything?
I don't know.
Walking 94-year-old encyclopedia, 95-year-old encyclopedia.
Well, stuff has to fall off periodically due to my...
Rusts and fall off.
Due to my dementia.
That's really not funny. I'm so stupid right now from that.
Mucinex. From the Mucinex.
I feel like I have dementia.
Okay, well...
So more importantly, we will put the link and we'll put a card here. Please go donate to the Alzheimer's research. I think these guys did a great thing. And the fact that they just were like, hey, go spend a day with this car and go have fun. Something good might as well come from,
your amusement.
Well, no, him being in the hospital. Something.
Oh.
Yeah. I had plenty of amusement.
Your amusement in the XL1.
I'm kind of mad that my holiday weekend was destroyed with work. I mean, I took a camera in a car and I photographed it. That's work.
Sounds just dreadful. Sounds absolutely dreadful. Go to the Lane Museum. I do need to hit the Lane Museum.
We need to do, okay, there's another thing. Here's our official request to Lane. Can we record a Carmudgeon Show could you imagine?
My God, it would be like 40 episodes. It would be
40 hours each.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. They have the coolest cars. I think they have a Beat 660 there. They have the coolest shit in that museum.
Yeah, and they're like not afraid of stacking vehicles on vehicles on vehicles. They have this hilarious photo of like a large tow truck with a smaller tow truck with it. Never mind. This is the kind of thing that we would all do if we had a museum full of weird shit, and they do it. So I appreciate them for that. I think we also volunteered to do a Carmudgeon episode at Radwood.
Yeah, we did somehow got roped into that.
Yeah, so that's happening in July.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
I always enjoy me at Radwood.
Radwood is, it's amazing. It's the best car show in the world.
Part of the Haggerty Not Podcast Network.
Podcast Network?
Not podcast, not Padcast.
Haggerty. Radwood is now part of Haggerty, yeah. Mm-hmm. We bought them. I would have done an episode there anyway. I mean, I think I've done live podcast at Radwood before we became... This is the weird thing about being in the Haggerty podcast /universe. Is I've been a customer forever. I did all kinds of Haggerty events before, and they keep buying things
that you were doing anyway.
Yeah, and so like I love when people are like, "You're only saying that because they pay you." No, I was saying that for 15 years beforehand. They just keep buying all the good shit. Leave some stuff for Grundy, guys.
Who
exactly?
Got to do the Cal Melee too. Speaking of,
that's right. That's you as a now participant in the Haggerty, a creator in the Haggerty Podcast Network, should probably get a free ticket for the California Melee, which is another Haggerty-owned property.
I just need a car from 1957 or earlier.
You can drum one up. You can steal one from somebody, borrow it. Isn't that what you do? You live in like old car world and you just take people's cars, like, I'll be right back, and go put 1,000 miles on back road rally on it.
I have only ever done that once.
Are you talking about that?
It was owned by Porsche.
Speaking of people abusing rental cars, yes. He did. We have video of a creek crossing in
I washed it before I returned it.
It was going to take a lot more than washing to undo
the contract also said I could put up to 1,000 miles on it, and I put 988 miles on it. I was well within the confines defined by the contract.
A Macan 2-liter loaner car on a rally that you put together. You should be ashamed of yourself. That was a good move.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this was episode 55 of the Carmudgeon Show, which is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network. My name is Jason Cammisa, and your name is?
Derek Tam-Scott.
God, you learned.
Finally.
Have your parents actually started accepting the fact that you're hyphenated?
I mean, I think they originated it.
But did they say it out loud?
Oh, no.
Like when you popped out, your mom was like, I will name him Derek Tam-Scott.
Undoubtedly.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. All right, join us next week.
Episode 56.
Until episode 56, where we'll talk about something
that we will figure out between now and then.
Well, it'll be about cars, right?
Presumably.
Then we can say with great certainty, episode 56 will be great because it'll be all about cars. Do you want to clap again?
No.
Can I do it?
Yes.